Let's give it up for Steeden Crow.
Is this thing on? Should I just pantomime the whole thing? It'd be pretty quiet, 5 minutes. So I'm Steeden Crow, as Chad said, and I'm going to talk to you about mushrooms today. And a lot of you probably, you can go. Okay. So a lot of you probably don't think about mushrooms as something that's really good for the environment. Maybe you don't think about the ecological impact of it. There's over 1 million species of mushrooms. We only have identified about 10% of them, and they exist about 90% of the forest. Not all fungus need light to survive, and they actually consume oxygen and produce carbon dioxide. They are the largest organism in the world, holding the record for 9.7 kilometers square, and that's in Oregon. And I want to talk to you a bit about what mushrooms are, what they do for our environment, and the benefits and uses, and other ways to get mushrooms other than just the grocery store. So mushrooms exist on an organism called mycelium. Mycelium grows underground in the forest. And mushrooms are the offspring of those. They drop seeds, basically, like a flower would, and then they reproduce from them. The acids and the enzymes break down debris in the forest, and if it wasn't for mushrooms, we would have piles and piles of leaves everywhere. A lot of people accredit that to worms, but mushrooms are very responsible for that as well. So there are several basic parts of a mushroom. This is going by very quick. I think this should have been an hour talk, but you can see kind of what a mushroom looks like there. And there's different types of mushrooms. There are other fungus as well. There are gill mushrooms, pored mushrooms, ridged mushrooms, and teeth mushrooms. And these are important things to consider if you're trying to identify mushrooms in the wild. There are other factors as well that will help you identify mushrooms. There's the type of gill attachment. So if it's a gilled mushroom, you can see there's different shapes and sizes, and the way the gills will attach to the stem changes. So there's a lot of different characteristics about mushrooms. There's also different sized caps and different shapes, concave, convex, and we see these everywhere when we're looking at them, but we probably don't think about it. And if you're looking for mushrooms in the wild, these are the kinds of characteristics you have to look for. Unless you want to eat a poisonous one, which none of us do. And this is their life cycle. So mushrooms produce spores, which germinate and produce mycelium, and the mycelium grow and produce more mushrooms. And it's a continuous cycle. And mycelium is very, very finite, very, very small, but it is a huge part of our ecosystem. So I go mushroom hunting with my kids, and there are other ways to get mushrooms as well. You can buy mushroom kits and grow them at home, or you can grow your own mushrooms and produce your own mycelium. It's actually quite easy. I didn't have enough time before, now I have too much time. So it's something that's fun for the whole family. And when we go mushroom hunting, we find other things as well, like caterpillars, and with that caterpillar, there are actually some mushrooms there. They're very small. And as you can see in the other photo, there are many different types of mushrooms, different shapes. I don't believe any of those ones are edible, though. These ones are poisonous, and only about 1% of mushrooms are actually deadly. We all seem to, we generally stay shy of mushrooms, and I don't recommend going out in the wild and eating them unless you can, for certain, identify them. But you see the bulb at the bottom? All those poisonous ones we just saw had a bulb at the bottom, like almost a cup, and that's the Anemita family, and they're all poisonous pretty much. So these are mushroom kits, and I like the one on the right. They're pretty cool. They've gotten a lot more stylish over the years. You can grow your own mushrooms really easily with straw, sawdust, things that are laying around. You can use compost. And you can inoculate them with spores for mushrooms and grow your own mushrooms at home. It's really easy. Do it in a mason jar. And there's lots of instructions online for that. Mushrooms can be used to save the environment. They're a good way to live healthy. They're very, very good for you, very nutritious, high in protein, high in a lot of vitamins that you might need. And they can help produce better alternatives to styrofoam packaging and other things like that. They'll break down oil. Within about 10 days, you could take a pile of oil and introduce mushrooms to it, and there would be no oil left. They can reduce harmful bacteria in water by 10,000 times within 24 hours, and they break down insects and plants. Nutritional information about mushrooms is 20 calories in 5 medium mushrooms. This is your standard mushroom you'd find in a grocery store. And as you can see, they're very high in vitamins, as well as other essential nutrients. They're also known as the meat of the earth in other cultures, and they are very meaty in texture when you cook them. So mushrooms have been shown to prevent the flu. I mean, we're all familiar probably with how mold has been used. They can reduce tumors, and they can cure and treat depression and cancer and other illnesses. They're still learning a lot about them. You can use them as building material, insulation, packaging. Now, this isn't mushrooms themselves. This is the mycelium. So you can actually grow mycelium in a mold. And that kind of structure on the bottom left there, that was grown in 10 days. So mushrooms have a lot of uses. They're not just to eat, and hopefully next time you look at mushrooms, you'll think about the other uses there are for them, and maybe you'll try some. I don't recommend picking them, but go to the grocery store, try some mushrooms, try different types of mushrooms. There's different flavors. They all taste different and have different textures. So I'm Stephen Crow, and my company is Web Hive, and I'm obsessed with mushrooms.